On the go? So are we. Get the IBJ Media app, your all-in-one news source for Indiana business news. Get breaking news alerts, read every story from IBJ, Inside Indiana Business, and the Indiana Lawyer, and listen to your favorite podcasts all in one place. Big news, small screen. Search IBJ Media and download the app today.
This is Inside Indiana Business Radio for the afternoon of Wednesday, March 25th, 2026. I'm Alex Brown. Science Central, a nonprofit STEM-focused education center for children in Fort Wayne, cut the ribbon today on its $2.8 million planetarium, billed as the only one of its kind in Northeast Indiana. Executive Director Mandy Mikulski says the planetarium features a Starball projector donated by the University of St. Francis and a new Digistar digital projection system.
It's just a whole new experience that I think a lot of people will love because it is immersive. You can't really get much more immersive than being in a planetarium under the dome. It just gives you this extra cool, more immersive 3D kind of experience.
The nearly 1,900 square foot venue includes a 21-foot high, 28-foot wide dome that can seat about 50 people. The Ports of Indiana has announced the opening of a federally approved bonded storage facility at its Mount Vernon port. The facility will enable the port to handle greater demand for storage of high-value commodities and also allows businesses to store imported goods without immediate payment of duties or taxes. The Indiana Chamber's Wellness Council of Indiana and the Indianapolis Colts Kicking the Stigma initiative have launched the Indiana Workplace Wellness Training Academy. The Chamber said the goal is to provide training sessions to help employers respond to mental health and substance use challenges, as well as reduce stigma and create workplaces where employees feel supported. From the number one source for Indiana business news, this is Inside Indiana Business Radio.
Thanks for listening to this IBJ Media podcast. You're probably going to remember this ad. Do you know why? Podcast advertising works. 85% of listeners recalled hearing an ad during a podcast, and 70% of podcast listeners have acted after hearing an ad. So whether you're looking to be heard across the entire IBJ Media podcast network, sponsor one of our shows, or just start with a 30-second ad, IBJ Media can help. Contact advertise@ibj.com to learn more.
A long-vacant building in South Bend has reopened with duck-pin bowling lanes, a working brewery, a pizza kitchen, and a historic preservation office, capping a $2.9 million renovation that brings new activity to the western edge of the city's downtown. The former Spenner Garage, a 17,000-square-foot structure dating back to the 1920s, was abandoned for years. Its restoration reflects a broader push to reactivate overlooked buildings just west of the city's core. Regina Emberton is co-founder of Historic Hearthstone, which led the restoration.
There's a lot of housing that's going up, lots of multifamily projects, but we think there also needs to be vibrancy, like things for these residents to do. And so this being really close to the Four Winds Field and the ballpark there, I think it's just going to kind of add vibrancy to this area. We also live just like a short 10-minute walk to the west of here. So it's like our neighborhood, and it's just nice to see something go from a vacant, blighted building into a beautiful, restored, classic building that's got a lot of vibrancy, and the tenants in it are just bringing people in and creating that vibrant space for the different community members.
The revitalized building is anchored by Ivy Alley Social House, which features duck-pin bowling, the Pizza Kitchen, and Buckethead Brewing. Indiana Landmarks also moved its Northern Indiana office to the building, along with the nonprofit South Bend Trade Works. Butler University announced today that Ronald Norred, who started at point guard for the Bulldogs when the team made consecutive NCAA championship game appearances in 2010 and 2011, has been hired as head coach of the men's basketball program. Since graduating from Butler in 2012, Norred has coached at Brownsburg High School and for 5 different NBA franchises, most recently as assistant coach for the Atlanta Hawks for 3 seasons. As the Illinois legislature continues to mull a potential incentive package, Indiana Governor Mike Braun believes Northwest Indiana still has a shot at landing a multi-billion-dollar Chicago Bears stadium project, in part because of the city of Chicago's financial straits.
Maybe flirting with figuratively or literally a bankruptcy where 40% of their operating budget is servicing debt, and now mostly the request for interest only. So the Bears are probably seeing that.
Braun said he hopes to get a more definitive answer on the team's plans within the next 2 months. IU Columbus finance professor Ryan Brewer is this week's guest on the Business and Beyond podcast with Gary Dick, presented by PNC, a weekly conversation with high-profile Hoosiers in business, sports, and entertainment, and beyond. Available now on the IBJ Media app or your favorite podcast provider. I'm Alex Brown for Inside Indiana Business Radio on Demand.
Get a behind-the-scenes look at Indiana's most influential leaders. On Business and Beyond, we go beyond titles and resumes to explore the personal stories, pivotal moments, and hard-won lessons that shape Hoosier leadership. Hear from the people driving Indiana forward in their own words. Subscribe and listen wherever you get your podcast or at ibjpodcasts.com.
The IBJ Media Podcast Network is the soundtrack of a growing state. Indiana is on the move, and you can hear it happening on the IBJ Media Podcast Network. We bring you the voices at the center of our economy, our courts, our companies, and our communities. Subscribe now and be part of the conversation that's building Indiana's future. Find all of our shows by searching IBJ Media in your podcast app or visit ibjpodcasts.com.